white, violet, purple and gold, pink, blue, green, gold. And there are more centers, but these are the general centers that is usually needed for understanding the majority of how our spiritual system works. And what I was saying here as a beginning intention was, when I speak, I'm going to be releasing something that is precisely in the whole absence of vision, not knowing what I'm going to say. And it will just come through. As part of what I think Spirit allows to work through us, but I think sometimes it's okay to have a vision, a sort of mental idea, intention of what to speak about. Anyways, I'm shutting it off here because it could sound very monotone, very not very supportive to your growth. I have ants on me. You ask me what we can do. You ask me what is possible. You ask me the things that perhaps you have not thought you even asked before. But, as you see, we're all connected. I can discern and understand yourself as part of myself, which I understand that subconsciously the majority of people are asking deep, deep, deep down within themselves. But they're too scared, or they're too prideful, or they're too dealt with the poisons that masquerade in a way where they do not wish to decide to go back upon a choice that they've made of what they think reality is, what God is, what is purpose and serving others, when you're going to get so much pleasure from the entertainment and the comedy and the levity of consistent joking around with friends. But we forget that we on this planet are all interconnected. And though we should never be lost in the savage tortures that go on around the world, the barbaric low levels of consciousness of lifestyles and cultures and communities, it is still always important to remember what another part of ourselves are going through and our opportunity to help them. And part of our ability to help them comes by our realization of how we're all connected. That the very atom and the molecules behind all form and matter at the quantum level comes from a source that is interconnected, from which all space and matter comes from. You can put a name on it, but it's beyond names, and it's a space from which energy, light, manifestation of energy, vibration is able to take on form. And this is the same space and place called the veil, the black hole. That is actually just a space where there's an inability to raise the consciousness to understand and perceive and experience the being inside, known as the One. Welcome to the School of Being. Beloved friends, brothers and sisters, beloved family. It is our duty, if we want to accept the role of what it is like to share love in the way that can't necessarily be defined by modern day civilization through sex and various pervasive perversity to stimulate animal-like qualities, which I will not label as bad, wrong, evil, Because really it's an experience that is chosen to be taken on, to understand the effects of separation. And I'm going to tell you about sex right now is something that is not being talked about. And it's something that really should be talked about, because it's an act that is not shameful. And many of us participate in it to create the balance of what we seek in a feminine energy or a masculine energy, and to bring forth a oneness that many people do not feel that they can provide for themselves and their day-to-day lives. But there is an exuberant collective choice being made to undergo a culture that is revolved around bringing these activities into the day-to-day life, no matter what morals and values you have, but just based on appearances and feeling. And if it feels good, do it. Livelihood, which will bring the civilization down in consciousness. Catching the drift of the spirit, catching the fire, what has been talked about as the heightened level of vibration and consciousness, is a determination. It is a release and a surrender to help others, and we can allow ourselves to be that vessel of spirit wherever we are, but sometimes it requires studying first, and to get that right material of studying is a very hard process when we accept other levels that are not as pure because it sounds good or it feels good, or these things that people say to convince them that it is right for them, when it is really not doing anything to provide a practical, impactful, creative way that contributes to other people understanding that they are one, that they have a being inside of themselves that can use any fear, any diversity to bring forth a complementary action. And that is precisely why we are here. To bring these opportunities to the fore, and to sometimes, if we're in science, if we're in art, sometimes, which can be looked at as both, but sometimes we're in different specialties of society and accounting and you name it. Fashion and clothes, or food production, whatever it is, stocking, paint, mechanics, construction. In every situation we are faced with people. And though we may not have a lot of time to face people, because if we don't do our jobs, we're going to get fired, because that is the way the system is run. Well, there is another side that's not being taken that will allow that same business to actually destroy itself if the people inside the business do not begin to speak with that love that connects with each other. And it's a love that's not based on feminine and masculine connection to provide a foundation for a family per se, or a relationship per se, where you get love like that. It is a completely redefined model to revolutionize the experiences of why we are here on this earth. And by allowing ourselves to step into a presence that we feel like is the creator, or part of the creation of who we are, we can tap into a new wave of understanding of what we can say, of what we can do based on the approaches we give to other people and their influence to partake of them or not. You see, everything right now is in a very compulsive state, schizophrenic state, and I'm going to go back and forth between teachings, hopefully to rediscover underneath a similitude that is a piercing intention that can be a common core. Although I'll try to explain it in words, it will be beyond words. And it may not even be me who reveals it to you. Maybe someone else, and maybe even your higher self, or those who you work with as you are able to attune to those in the higher realms, the heavenly host, the ascended masters. And it is one of the most scariest things we could possibly do when we're in these places of work, when we're in the store, when we're in our affairs, and there's people coming on from left and right, passing by, and they're in their state of being, you understand their vibration, and yet there is that sense that nothing can be done. Well, who is saying that? But the actual presence to something that we have accepted long ago, that our presence or our state of self is dependent on what other people say to us, not on what we say to others. And if we can reformulate a new state of self that is based on us talking to others in the way that is exactly to give to them what we wish them to give to us, we can revolutionize this planet much quicker than we have ever thought we could. In a matter of a decade, so many things can happen. But precisely 10% of the population, most spiritual people, have been unwilling to take this stand. And I have just recently experimented with, within the past week, a very extraordinary effort to pursue this type of lifestyle. And it is very intense. And I understand that it will come all throughout my life as I'm living. But we must we don't have to. Look. Please look. Everything that I'm saying, no. You don't have to do these things. You don't have to understand these things. There's a sense of connection, though, that is underneath these words, that the intention is to bring us closer to what we can do together. And it's precisely when we bring these interactions to another, we see a new self. Everything that is going on in the world is a feedback loop. Whatever we give is sent back to us. Whatever our thoughts are and our emotions are, it's back to us. And we can allow ourselves to be, after studying for some time, the presence for this unconditional spirit to be brought forth into people's lives where they can understand that there's a whole new world, there's a whole new reality. There's no real beginning of the conversation, ending of the conversation. There is just a continuous conversation that does not have to so focus on getting the right thing to be said, but just as a matter of living in joy, to share the pristine experience that we have when we are in these states, when we are listening to this beautiful music that I've talked about recently, and these states of being when we're in this mode of questioning and thinking of ideas that can make businesses work together and bring empathy and various questions in a customer representative environment, which is most of the majority, I think, in developed countries, that in these situations we can transpose something that can really shake up what decades of years of various conditioning based on duality can do. But that is a very big leap from what most people are living today. Even the most spiritual people, 90% of the time, perhaps even higher. I would sense it's higher. There's a reluctance to talk to the everyday person that walks by them. And not like necessarily talk to every person, but just, begin to just be who we are and share these experiences and share perhaps questions that challenge kind of what people are so reluctant to accept because they feel that they will be shunned, they will be lower, or their position of all their years of thinking of the same thing will go against their status as being a smart person. There is a supreme break that needs to happen, and it is by our ability to fuse in the various potentials that we can infuse into society in its various parts in whatever specialty we're working. Perhaps we need to transcend our state and build our own system of society, or field of society. That has been talked about before. I just caught into that loop. And there will be so much fear. All the time and money and risk to pay the bills and the family will not be available. but you will be so surprised by the intentions to just lock into a selfless mode and intention of a lifestyle to bring through a relationship in a business that is so complementary to every other state of business that will reflect back, and not just experiences of beauty, but the necessity of money, which we all need. And now this is a step-by-step process, and it doesn't mean leave your job right away for those who have that calling. It's a gradual process that takes everyday decisions that embark to understand and study and experience what we can do with others to a certain level where the power of what is coming through us is beyond what we can even comprehend. That there is a emotional impulse of a determining love to be connected with the other person, to be seen, to be known as a only reality in us. And this does not mean, again, forcing people, making people understand that they should be a certain way, whatever. None of this, no. It is a balance that seems hard to conceive, but it goes along the lines of letting your light so shine before anyone. And this light that shines is that spirit that you have to allow. And you can't be afraid, but you can't make it to come through and just force, like, oh, I gotta do this, so I gotta be the spirit. And I will go back and forth, just because that's what it's taking right now, for people to wake up. My beloved friends, I am your brother. You are part of my family. And this will forever be. We had a love so great, if you are watching this video right now, continuing, we had a love so great. By our connection to the one, to the source from which our higher self springs from us right now. That had a all-encompassing desire to help others reconnect to this experience. Many of us did not study. Many of us did not understand or even experience what duality is like when we are shut off from our previous knowledge and coming into a physical body, whereby it is very torturous because the state of consciousness is so different. But this is the love we all have for one another. And to reconnect to that is a very distinct path that will require letting our light shine wherever we are, whatever affairs, whatever field we're working in, and perhaps bringing forth like-minded people in our society through the outreach of various methods of media to concoct a beautiful project. Perhaps even it's a movement, a group of individuals coming together and formulating a new community that is based on being the space of emergency light when society loses all of it. Because right now it's being milked and sucked out of everyone. That's why most people are looked at as dead when you try to have a conversation with them that is different than what they rely upon to reconcur that what they believe is real, relying on an outer source for what is truly inside of us, pulsating the true existence. I want you to know you have always been much loved. There has not been a single moment where you have not had someone always loving you. This someone always thinks to be separated from us, but most of the time, it is only by our willingness to choose when we chose, which probably was a long time ago, that from a tumultuous experience that there was a possibility that people can be separated from us, that we can be separated from people, and that there was perhaps a joy and a comfort in being separated from certain people. In the end, after we've gone through our trials and our initiations, we will understand that this will be an illusion. For we cannot truly have any should or should nots before departing from this planet. That is why I'm here for you, and that is why you are here for me. No greater, no lesser stage, rank, or class for us to be able to complement this infinite flow that is coming through us. It is designated to be the heart of divine service. That is where we will find healing. That is where we will find a good understanding to our mission. Sometimes it requires looking in within ourselves and our mind, those things that in our life that we are fearing to take on, or we are fearing to forgive, we are fearing that there is something that can truly affect us, into experiencing that we are separated from all of life. There are many different circumstances at play right now, where in different parts of the world, especially in developed countries, there is an accelerated decision based on the majority of the people to go through a hard situation. Could be famine, could be economic breakdown, could be natural disaster, could be war, disease. But the people are literally asking for these things when they are not understanding that there is a higher reality, that they can do more together by serving one another, by understanding that their inward parts, their mind and emotions and their physical body is actually a direct influence based on what they believe is true reality in their world. It filters down all the way to the environment and the structures we see. And if people keep looking away and turning away, but they have no power to change any of that, then there will be a continued revolving lesson of the school of hard knocks. And this is something that we, the most spiritual people on this earth, do not truly wish to go through, because we understand a higher vision that encapsulates the effects of all these choices. And these choices, we right now have the ability to concretely integrate into our beings. And this is a decision based on our everyday life, to have these conversations with those that we fear, to have those conversations with those who we think will insult us, to have these conversations with those who will put us down in a position that we're not smart enough, to put us in a position that we cannot actually understand why we are here and who we are, and have a direct influence on our natural selves that is truly always connected and creative and unconditionally loving to an individual that pops into us. And I should say, pops into our field of influence. And that is a training that takes a lot of energy to refocus and to revitalize the worldview and the perception we think of what we do. Manifest in the world. And it is precisely by our ability to look at these things inside of us and question them that forms a congruent method to outpicture and outplay for others to see that they can perhaps do this as well. And it's looking considerably like it is the decision by the 10% most spiritual people that will allow for this decision to be made collectively for the 80% of the general population. As right now, what has been said, what I have studied, what I have integrated into my being, that they will not be able to do this alone. And the 10%, the least spiritual people, are very determined on destroying and sucking the life that is on this planet, as we have already seen in history and in this current day and age that is industrialized, the very way we can think with one another, that kind of just excludes a natural flow that is for each other to live in a music with many different types of melodies and rhythms that make us want to naturally dance and experiment with new ways we can construct the parts of society to work together, that is not just having to deal with profit, productivity, and popularity as the fundamental evaluation to how we should work together. I heard this recently said that it's about the customer, treating the customer first, that the customer is our first priority. But what about the employees? What about that if they're going through a rough time? What if, by our ability to give to them, we'll just undermine more of our sense of well-being that contributes to the business's productivity, which may even lead it to greater destruction among it, as negative vibrations always have their effect. So it is the choices that we make today on what we want to experience in businesses, relationships, and various affairs that we are dealt with in everyday life. Let it be known that we have the power of spirit to transform everything we have in our world. But the worlds of other people, it is up to them. But unless we give them an opportunity, perhaps not always in one way, perhaps it's just by questioning and understanding a higher view that raises our vibration, that collectively may receive, so they can understand that that is another reality that is possible, acceptable, and worthy of looking at, to experience that we are all connected. Call that a play on words, but this whole life is a play when you realize nothing about it is truly serious. To make others understand that they have to be able to do something, that if they don't do something, then they are shamed, shunned, and should be simplified to a status of small. Let it be known that we are the makers of our reality if we allow it, the Spirit, to come through us to change what we know in our world as real, as a possibility, for enlightenment, and for true freedom to reign supreme in one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But as an example that all nations can follow, which this nation has not. Have hope, have grace, and have love. That we can do this together, and no matter what is done without each other, we can still say that we did what we could. Not in the act to force and make others understand that our reality is better or any of these things. That is very much based on this fallen logic, which I will get into another time. It's been called serpentine logic. But is primarily based on the effort and love and the experience to be, so that another person can feel that they can too. Let us be. Amen.